What prompted you to want to even think about buying physical metal?
I think it was just like an epiphany almost. I guess just much like Mike says in his book, I just got this feeling that something wasn't right. And I guess once that kind of light went off, and I'm not a person actually prior to that did a whole lot of reading, and getting that education side was huge. After reading some books on monetary history and really understanding the difference between, I guess, money and currency, as Mike says, and the key thing that resonated with me was this idea of gold and silver being this store of value. In terms of owning the physical metal, if you understand that it's the paper manipulation and this idea that the spot price is really set by the paper market, but it's really the physical silver and gold, that's where the true value lies. That's where the tangible value, the intrinsic value lies in the actual physical silver itself. And as Mike says, if you can't hold it, you don't own it, right?
Did you look around at other dealers, and what made you come to the conclusion of working with goldsilver.com?
There's lots of bullion dealers out there, lots online. There's lots of good ones up here in Canada. I think what did it for me is that once I read Mike's book, and actually I continuously reread his book, and this thing is marked up and highlighted like crazy, but I always go back to it because it just reinforces the fundamentals. And I think his book was it was an easy read. You just got a good reinforcement of the fundamentals from him. Seems like a very genuine guy. So it was just natural progression to go check out, goldsilver.com. And once joining the insiders, that's that to me is like added value that you guys bring to the table. And a lot of these other bullion dealers, they just pitch your product, whereas goldsilver.com, it's about this. It's more than just that. It's about this education piece and raising awareness. And so I think that's really what drove me towards your site. And I mean, the service has been great. And not to say that there hasn't been hiccups, but when there was, you guys were right on the ball and got it fixed up. So,
any comments about why you chose to go with storage versus having it physically sent to you?
There was a number of reasons why we went with the segregated vault storage. I mean, Mike talks about it in his book. He makes a comment in his book too about people think, well, safety deposit box is where you should keep things like gold and silver, but once you read his book and you understand that's part of the banking system, that's kind of like it's kind of like the fox guarding the hen house type of thing. The other thing about it too was because we'd switched from different asset classes into silver, we had done some what we considered to be at the time fairly large bulk purchases, and it wasn't, from a practicality perspective, it just wasn't practical to have those amount of ounces kind of lying around the house. I mean, we may have metals close at hand, but nothing near the quantity that we would want to have in a secure storage area, like Brinks, right, for example. And Brinks is, during 9/11, even Brinks was still shipping and sending gold and silver. They were still conducting business while the banking system was shut down. So, and it's good too from a strategic perspective of keeping it in a secure location. Plus, when the time comes to sell the overvalued asset, it's right there in the system. So it's I guess a convenience thing too, right?
Any other final thoughts that you could, or what you would say to a novice investor that is considering precious metals?
Yeah, actually, a family member of ours, she's considering the purchase, and she was asking me, do you still think buying silver is a good idea? A good deal? And I'm like, absolutely. If I could share one thing with your listeners is, read Mike's book, and the number one lesson that I took away from his book was that price means nothing. It's value that's everything, right? That to me is, once you understand how to determine if something is fairly over or undervalued, and picking up on this whole idea of these wealth cycles, then when somebody asks you a question like that, absolutely silver is a great investment right now. It is extremely undervalued. And people need to figure out how do you determine that, and the idea of you don't measure it with another fiat currency, right? You need to measure with another hard asset, like how many points of the Dow can you buy with an ounce of silver? How many ounces of silver does it take to buy a house? So to understand that concept of it's about the value and not be concerned with how much you're paying for the silver, because in the end it's all about how many ounces have you accumulated. So that would be, I guess, the lesson I would take away, and make sure that it's physical. I've seen that actually start to resonate people. That's how I convinced my wife to show her, let's stop measuring things in paper dollars, because it's all fiat currency. You got to start measuring it in terms of real intrinsic valued assets. She was convinced. So that is the single most important lesson that people could take to heart.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.